What's up? Welcome to a new episode of Movie Schmovie. This is episode 434. My name is Steve, one of the co-hosts of the show, and as always, I'm joined by
Ron.
And John.
I was like, I'm not sure. Is that John? I don't know. I see you, but is it actually you?
No, I got a text right when this started and thought I could silence my shit, and then realized it was time to say something, and then also realized that this is a rare case where
I know.
When I watched Conclave, it was last week, right before we recorded. And so I did not watch it with an ear out for catchy quotes or anything
Or a
like
cool
that.
background. Or a cool background.
Or a cool background. But I wanted to find out, Steve, when you were watching Conclave, did you have it in your head? Like, oh, this is the quote John might use at any moment?
There was I can't, actually, I think I wrote it in my notes app on my phone. I tried to write this down because I never remember it when I was watching it earlier.
Because it's like I'll accept submissions for this week because I did not.
No,
have
I don't think I have any. I was in my other notes for the require view. I don't think I wrote any for you this time. For what this is going to be what John says.
Well, I'm quoting actually the character, the Pope, who dies in this film.
Spoiler alert. Jeez. Oh, that's the one. Yeah. Okay, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
I mean, that was spot on. For a second there, I thought I was watching the movie again. Over Zoom.
Steve, snap out of it. You're in reality.
Okay. Well, we're recording now, guys. Sorry. Oh man. Yeah. So there it is. Conclave was this week's required viewing pick. Ronald chose it last week. Great, timely selection. It's jumping into award season here. This is one of the awards players. To what degree we'll know we'll know in a month. A little less than at the time of this recording. But talk about Conclave, Ronald, why you picked it, and I just jump right into it with us.
Sure. So when I think about cinema, I think about some of the movies that have kind of come out in the last couple years. What's one of the bigger ones? All Quiet on the Western Front is one of the ones. And I noticed Edward Berger is the director of that and also did Conclave. So I'm like, hey, this motherfucker don't miss. And I've heard such good things about Conclave. And as a Catholic in the world, I'm always interested to see how it's depicted on screen. So I chose the 2024 drama Conclave. It's one of those ones that I think when I think about big movies, this is the opposite of that. But it reminds me of old movies, like old school movies. I think one thing that comes to mind is 12 Angry Men. In fact, like it's just like a beauty to dialogue and circumstantial tension, and how are these characters going to interact with each other. And of course, a murderer's row of actors and actresses in this thing, like Ralph Fiennes. I don't know how to pronounce this guy's last name, but Lucien. I don't want to mispronounce his name.
Just go for it.
Marcotti. Nope.
Sounds perfect.
Masmati. Lucien Masmati. Gangs of London. That is one of my favorite shows of all time. He is a powerhouse in that. And then Stanley Tucci, Isabella Rossellini. I mean, like the cast goes on and on and on. And then John Lithgow. And unfortunately, because of some of the casting, you can kind of tell where the direction of some of the storylines went. But I was okay with that. And this was being mentioned even in the summertime as one of these ones that would stand the test of time and probably make a lot of people's top tens. So, I put it on the list for us to watch it collectively. I know, John, you said you saw it, but what'd you think of Conclave? John?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was getting the pronunciation.
Got another text?
No, I was trying to find the pronunciation. It seems like some people are saying it like Masamati, and other people are saying it like Samati. Neither one of those sound right, and they both sounded very, very British. So I don't know. I don't know if they know. But I was not Catholic. So, and I am not Catholic.
And I'm not currently.
This movie didn't represent. I went to convert, and they sent me this movie to watch first. No,
they said no.
No, I mean, I find this movie to be, and I didn't do a lot of digging into the reality of the movie, and I've only seen kind of glancing references in the way this movie's covered about how it's not really a realistic depiction necessarily of anything. It's not even necessarily meant to be like a torn from the headlines inside look. It's more like the dramatic stakes of this idea and just how closed off this world, this college of cardinals or whatever it is. There is a whole subcultural thing for you to take in as you're watching this movie about what a huge subculture. I guess it's a culture, but it's such a diverse group of cardinals from all over the world, and they are wearing the ceremonial garb, and they're behaving in a very ceremonial way, but they're also like grabbing cigarettes outside and gossiping and I don't know, it's just an interesting picture of even if it is not an accurate, well-researched, or again, I don't know how much it is meant to be like verisimilitude, but just this look inside this world and this loaded concept of choosing a new pope, which is
right.
Different from electing a political figure, but it is essentially the same thing in a lot of ways as electing like an important political figure or coronating a king or a queen or something like that. So it is a very, very interesting concept that I think this movie is a really cool look into that world. Again, not knowing how much someone would say, oh yes, this is kind of how it happens, or this is what it's like. But just to say the headiness of this idea, it's almost like a fantasy story or a myth or something plopped down into our world. But I really was impressed by how they evoked that sense of, like I said, that there's a world outside. There's thousands of people gathered outside to find out the results of this conclave. Who's the new pope going to be? And there's a whole world that, there's even something that happens late in the film that obviously greatly affects what's happening outside. But the fact that these people are inside making a choice that's going to affect the world, and yet it's just a bunch of people making a decision, and some of them have good information and some of them have bad. I don't know. It was an interesting, I think the word I've been kind of looking for here is like an interesting parable or a fable, even at the same time as it might be a really astute drama about how these decisions are made. But it really did feel like these people have an impossible decision, like they have to, and like the Stanley Tucci character, what was his name again? Bellini. I liked the way we saw his sort of social conscience was part of his way of doing things. And the movie does address those issues of like a social conscience, and ends up being kind of really interested in investigating that notion. But just this whole idea of you kind of can't be involved in this. They all invoke that idea that if someone wants this job, they're not right for it. Right. People say that about president. People say that about pope. People say that about like a messiah figure. Like if you're lining up for it, you're not right for it. Yeah.
Like anything that any kind of major scale, especially like scale and scope stuff, like Dune and Game of Thrones, and like any of these massive things. It's like the people that are seeking it are like not the right people for it. And that idea, I like how that's presented, that the scene with them in the auditorium, or whatever that was, like when he's saying that, when Tucci's making his claim of what he wants to be known if they do want to back him earlier in the film.
Mm-hmm.
And the one, the one character basically saying like, that's exactly why I want him, that's why it should be him and not the guy that Ronald mentioned. But yeah, no, this one was really great. I mean, to Ronald's point, it is almost, it's sad that All Quiet wasn't a movie that was in theaters, or you could see in theaters with ease. That was like a Netflix kind of late season darling that happened that year that came out. I would have loved to seen that in a theater. But yeah, this was that filmmaker is kind of blowing up right now. He's kind of got a lot of stuff in the can, and this kind of as his next thing is gotten great reviews. It did really well at the box office for a movie of its kind. I don't know. I just was watching it. It kind of felt electric to me. Like, I don't know, it's super entertaining. like the suspense thriller aspect of it, how dramatic and and some of the character exchanges, the performances, and really just like with an amazing cast that it has, it really just and everybody has moments in the movie where you're like, wow, yeah, they are incredible, and at their craft. But honestly, like every moment that you're with Ray Fiennes, I'm just like, he is like one of the best. He really is. Like, there's no question in my mind, no matter what he does, like I am always glued to him. And um, you know, and I think that the what do you call it? The a gift that he has is like he's been able to do it in movies of many sizes and scales, Bond, Harry Potter, a film like this. I mean, you go for, I don't need to list everything, but he's one of everybody, pretty much knows he's one of the best. But I just felt like every scene he's in, when he walks in and out of a scene, there's just like something special that just like is added to the equation every time he is present. And I don't know. I just thought his performance in this was great, honestly. I feel like there's other actors in the movie that are probably getting a little more attention for some scenes that are, maybe on their reel for the awards push, like Tucci. But I just really thought Ray Fiennes is just incredible. He always is. But, 2 minutes in that first scene when he's sitting at the bedside, and like you see him look at the nightstand and see the the book and the glass, and like how he's reading the scene and the people and the tear. I just was like, man, this guy is like, he's one of the best, man. He's so good.
And also, like, it gets into that thing too of he's so good that you realize you don't know the full internal life of Cardinal Lawrence, his character. Like you sort of know him. You believe you've seen that he's a good man and that he actually is just trying to figure out the best solution. But that whole idea that he's kind of creeping up as a candidate, as these other people kind of split the vote against each other and things change, and you're sort of like, wait, am I watching a guy have like a Machiavellian rise in this situation? But it turns out, I mean, I guess we're assuming people have watched this movie to listen along. He's not like, or at least my reading of that character was he legitimately was someone who was concerned about the situation, not someone who was trying to use it. And I think that's I think that kind of compassion and, like you're saying, Steve, a kind of intelligence is something that Ray Fiennes plays really well. And so you do sort of trust him when you're watching his character and you're filtering the movie through his character. There is something to that, like something about actors like that just make you feel good watching a movie because you feel like you've got a steady hand bringing you in. And I do think that in a weird way, maybe he's like one of the less flashy performers in the movie, but he does have a couple of big moments, like when he kind of cries, like you said. I think that stuff's really powerful. But I do think you can't underestimate how important it is that, like, yes, this is Ray Fiennes and Stanley Tucci and John Lithgow and Isabella Rossellini, and like these people are, I mean, they know how to do it, and they know how to like with a gesture make you feel something, and they have great dialogue, and it's an otherworldly kind of movie, which is a very strange thing to say. Like, people keep saying things like thriller and like it feels like a murder investigation at the beginning when he's sitting down, like. Even though the Pope dies of a heart attack, there's never any doubt that it's like a regular death. But the courtroom intrigue, you're almost the Game of Thrones comparison is a good one, because it is like, this is like courtroom intrigue, not courtroom, but court, like royal court intrigue. That's familiar to us, but it's like slightly less fantastical. And so, like, I really would be interested to know how much this is based on like really studious application of fact, or how much they just took a situation and said, oh, we can kind of get at some of this stuff. So Ronald, you're the one that picked the movie. You've heard how we feel. Like, did it live up to your expectations, or do you have any particular like who maybe surprised you the most in this movie? We know a lot of these actors are great. Was there anybody who just winged you?
I'd say the Sergio Pastelito's character, Castellito's character. I think how ambitious he was, like just how aggressive and racist he was, and how Stanley Tucci really was like putting himself there to avoid a person like him setting the the papal whole system back quite a
Yeah,
bit.
Tedesco. You're talking about Tedesco. You're right. That guy, he had a real convincing. You could see how he'd be one of the main qualities. He had like a steamroller-like quality to him. You're right. Stanley Tucci's character basically rises just so someone can oppose that guy.
Yeah, and I think the heavy part about it, I mean, which they kind of revealed in the third act, was the Pope knows these people like the back of his hands, and he set it up so that it would work out the way that it did. You know, like there was a reason why he kept everybody as close as they did. It was a reason why he investigated the things he did. He knew that some of these people had ambitions beyond what they were describing to him. You know, I thought that was so interesting. And, you know, that the surprise was a little bigger to me than just him not getting the Pope position, but maybe the idea that like Stanley Tucci's character kind of said, like, maybe you were here to see this conclave out. Like, that's a bigger mission in a way. Like, it's like, this couldn't have gone well without you. You represent. It felt more like a detective story than anything to me. Like, there's like the court intrigue, which was as a totally different genre once they get in there, and then the detective work kind of around it. And him not wanting to interfere with the process, like he did such a good job of trying to keep the outside situation until it really literally affected everything going on. Like, I think that was really beautiful. Like the fact that he literally kept it out of their eyes and ears until it literally came to their footstep was such a beautiful thing. Like, you know, there's like I think about this whole thing on The Wire where they used to talk about like beat police, like people that were like on the streets talking to the people, getting to know people, kissing babies. There were people that had an integrity to their jobs
and that knew everybody.
They knew everybody, yeah. And Ralph Fiennes' character was like that. He was like a beat cop. He really. They had the same position at one time, and then he moved up a bit, and there's like still this integrity that he had about the job. Like, sure, I don't want to be the Pope, but I don't want you to be the Pope. If that means that you're going to be racist and weird and you don't like women, it's like it's like this. That's so dope, man. It's like it almost felt like Superman. Like this guy was trying to be this person, this like ambitious. I mean, I guess that's what religion is, right? You try to be this bigger than life person for other people. I mean, like that's some people want to be like that. Some people like showing the imperfections, but the ambition to be a better person is just something that I think anybody can relate to, even if you're not like a heavy duty fan of religion or even a fan of Catholicism, because Catholicism is especially triggering to a lot of people. But I loved it. I thought it was one of those movies. Like I said, it feels like this feels like cinema. Like this movie's gonna get remade at some point. Like it feels like 30 years from now, there's gonna be a Conclave that they're gonna make with Timothy Chalamet playing. You know what I mean? Like it just is that kind of beautiful film. Like
no, I think it has to become a musical first and then get made back into a movie. No, but I think you're right that like there's something old school. I was talking to my mom about this movie, trying to tell her she would enjoy it, and I thought of the movie 12 Angry Men.
Yeah, 12 Angry
classic.
Men, yeah.
And that's one that stands up to reinterpretation and is a play. So I don't know. I had the similar thought with this, not so much about it being remade, but just about how there's something iconic about getting those people in a room where they have to sort something out, and they're making a decision that's going to affect all these people, and it's this larger than life. You couldn't possibly imagine the weight of that decision, but Bellini is he's in it because he wants to stop Tedesco, and meanwhile Tremblay's out there doing all this stuff, like the Lithgow character. He's bribing people and setting things up, and or seemingly, and he's an operator too. But they're all doing these things that I think after we've just been through this extremely dramatic election in our country, it really was making me think about that kind of feeling of like, oh, but once this decision is made, we're locked in with this person, and there's certain things like, oh, what about the character you mentioned played by Msamadi Adeyemi, who like turns out is a raging homophobe.
Right. It's like
he seems like a good guy though. It's like we like him, and we kind of don't think it's fair the way that he's being taken down. And yet when Stanley Tucci says he's a raging homophobe and all this stuff, it's like, oh, we don't want this guy either. But it just really made me think about like election year, especially because the way things are going in our country right now, it feels a little bit like we're enshrining a worldview more so than just a person who's going to serve for a few years. And so it has these larger than life implications of like whoever becomes this new pope, they're going to set the tone for a lot of people around the world for the foreseeable future. That felt 100%. Very close to the surface for me watching this, And I would say that the way the movie ends up is a much more hopeful outlook. The movie actually almost has an almost magical sense of hopefulness at the end, based on how things go. And I guess I would say if anyone hasn't watched the movie, maybe we could preserve some sense of sense of surprise about how the movie goes. But there is a sort of dark horse candidate that ends up being another wrinkle in this thing.
Somebody pressed the player 2 button on Street Fighter. New challenger. New challenger. And then the plane came. Oh, Japan. Let's think about Street Fighter today for some reason. But yeah, I thought that was so cool. The energy behind this person. And then it's funny. It kind of closely was related to everything that was happening with the investigation with the gentleman that was a raging homophobe. Mm-hmm. That all kind of trips and things being canceled, and I thought that was so cool how that was handled. And then heroes kind of coming out of the woodwork. Like you wouldn't expect some people to kind of stand up the way they did. There's some real amazing hero moments. And the argument in the dark room felt like poetry. Like it was like this
that was beautiful
beauty to it. They're like pointing at each other from like pointing up and yelling, and then this guy stands up and gives this amazing speech about suffering and his connection to pain and love, and this distanced feeling that they talk about. He's like, I live this. Like I've gone through this right now. I'm going through. I just went through. I've seen people lose their lives. It's just gorgeous movie, man.
I don't know how to pronounce the name of the actor either. We need to do our actor name pronunciation research for a movie like this. But Carlos Diaz, who plays Cardinal Benitez, who is one of the characters that we hadn't really talked about yet. There is something so almost otherworldly, I've already said, but like that kind of calm of this character and how they represent something different to the others in that conversation. And that, you're right, that scene looks like a Renaissance painting or something. That scene of them in the like the theater with the like the stadium seating and the blue chairs and everything. But you're right.
Why was it so dark? I was wondering why they were talking in almost a complete dark and letting the natural light come in. I thought that was insane. But
I think the way they were arranged in the shot, I was saying this about Hidden Fortress last week, even the way they were arranged in the shot says something about who their characters are. You know what I mean? I just love that. I just love that kind of tableau where you can tell that they've given a lot of thought to, like, here's an actual scene of characters sitting around talking. It doesn't feel stilted, but it's been so carefully laid out for you. And visually, this movie's full of like a kind of visual lushness. I think it's there to kind of point out to you how much money there is in the Catholic Church, but it's not like these men seem like, I mean, in some ways they're like peacocks, because of the way they dress and everything. And in other ways, they're all dressed the same. It's all the same. So there's something very unglamorous about what they're doing. I just think it's very interesting how it's impossible for any of those men to have a real understanding of the world, because anytime they enter a situation, the situation changes around their presence. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I just think that's a very interesting thought, that those people are like making the choices that they're making. And like you've said, you hope they're a good people. people in there doing heroic things and standing up for, like the future.
Yeah, man. So what's the next pick?
I think I'm gonna pick. There's a movie that I've had on my list for a bit, and I'm mainly thinking about this because there's a connection to a movie I wanted to briefly mention before we move on.
Oh, cool.
So there's a movie that's available on Hulu. My pick for the next, it'll actually be probably 2 episodes from now when we get to my required viewing. But there's a movie called Asphalt City that has Ty Sheridan, Michael Pitt, and Sean Penn in it.
Okay.
It got a small theatrical release a couple months ago from Vertical Entertainment, but it's relevant to me only because I'd been wanting to see it. It's kind of like a crime drama, basically a night, like a young paramedic, a night in the life of a young paramedic in New York City, who has like this partner in Sean Penn, who is kind of like the old grizzled, seasoned, professional, and how they go about their job and the kind of craziness that they kind of put their lives on the line against every night to help people in, like, as firefighters, as paramedics, as police officers. It's all about those kinds of service professionals. But Ty Sheridan specifically, I saw a movie last week called The Order. I mentioned that I was trying to go see it after our last episode.
Right.
And he's in it with Jude Law and Nick Holt. And I thought he was great in that movie. And it just reminded me, or I remembered that he had this film that I missed basically at the end of 23. I think it actually got the part of its theatrical or in early 24. But so yeah, I thought I might pick it. And actually, in looking into it, it's actually one of the same distributors as The Order. So I don't know if he's got something with this company. They like working with him, maybe. I don't know. But Ty Sheridan is in both. And actually Mike Tyson, who we talked about a little earlier before recording, he's in this film as well.
Cool.
As is Mel Gibson. This is kind of a like the Unhirables.
yes. But it got pretty good reviews, and I don't know. I kind of like those, like, this green, like a young green guy who's in with like a hardened professional who's been doing it, kind of like a Training Day vibe a little bit, and especially like around the fire department. My dad's a retired firefighter, and I don't know, just something about the trailer kind of caught my eye. And again, Ty was in The Order, which I saw last week, which was great. I just wanted to come back and check this out. Again, it's on Hulu. It's also for rental on VOD on like all the major platforms, but it's called Asphalt City. So we'll talk about that probably in 2 episodes from now. But
yeah, in 2025.
Yeah, we'll get to that finally.
We've decided to call that film Project 2025 because we're going to be getting to it.
But it's not really that. Like, I'm not going to sign off on that, but you can call it that if you want. You know what I mean? It is what it is.
You said you saw a movie on Netflix.
Yes.
Yeah. Real quick.
That I think I saw too.
Okay,
cool. One thing I wanted to say real quick. I don't want to talk a lot about The Order. I want to just mention that it's in theaters right now still. If anything about Jude Law, Nicholas Hoult, who's having quite a run right now. I just mentioned he was in Jury Number 2 last week. He's in The Order, which is in theaters. He's in Nosferatu, which you may hear us talking about in a little bit. But The Order I thought it was incredible. If you're talking like, those 70s crime thrillers based on true events, about, an FBI agent tracking down this basically religious cult, white supremacist group known as The Order, up in the Midwest or the Pacific Northwest. And just it's got like a 70s thriller, kind of like a Cassavetes vibe, like even like a Heat vibe, like this cat and mouse kind of, with the agent out on the trail, have I met this guy before? I don't remember. Maybe I have. The moment that they share scenes together are just really great. But it just kind of oozes that vibe. If what I'm describing at all rings a bell, um, like French Connection vibe a little bit. I don't know. It was just really great. Honestly, like score was incredible. And this is directed by Justin Kurzel, who I think I've talked about a movie on the podcast before called Snowtown Murders, which is a really hard movie to watch, but it's a really great film that he made. I think he's pretty awesome Australian director. Yeah, I don't know, but yeah, The Order's in theaters. I just want to say, I don't know when that one comes out on video on demand. I don't know how long of a time it'll have in theaters, but I was shocked to see it playing as much as it was around me here in Baltimore, around us in Baltimore. But that's in theaters. I just definitely want to recommend that. But yes, to Netflix we go. You saw Carry On, Ronald?
Yes, I did.
How fun was Carry On?
So goddamn. Look, 10 years ago, this shit would have cleared like 120 million.
Easily. Maybe even like 5 or 6 years ago.
So action-packed, so fun.
Yeah.
It's it moves at a nice little clip. And it's funny, it follows your logic. You're like, this movie's smarter than you. You think you do this? Okay. Do that. And I'm listening to you. I'm watching you. You aren't smart. You aren't fucking smart. I'm watching you. You aren't smart. And I love that. I love that, like, at every corner, every turn, that there was a bigger story at hand. There was a lot more brewing than I thought. Like, it had a lot more on its mind than I thought. And then like the second story of the cops that are investigating it, that's another thing. Like, that, it felt like too good. It felt like a TV series smashed into one movie in the best way possible.
Right.
Because those two stories felt separate but very together. And it didn't feel like they hurt each other. Like, once it got to the cops, I'm like, what is this? Why does this feel so weird? Why is this energy so weird? Then you figure out that there's a lot more to that. Like, it's like, I don't know if I've seen a movie with so many twists and turns. Like, have you? Like, I haven't seen anything.
It's just, I guess there's a certain like level or grade or quality of movie. I mean, there's lots of twist and turn stuff out there, but like, I think what this has going for it is just that it's like a great action Christmas movie. It's got a great young star. Taron Egerton is like, in the making. He's kind of growing and growing and growing. And honestly, like, I think kind of slowly steals the film, which is Jason Bateman as a bad guy.
So good.
He's incredible. Like, he's so good. Like, I love Bateman, and he's had moments of that bad, in his, what was this Netflix series that he had?
Ozark.
Yeah, like, that 1 foot in, 1 foot out. But I mean, in this one, he's just clearly the bad guy.
He is.
And he's great. He's so good. It moves so quick. Awesome action, not like big explosive things, but there's a really cool car action sequence that was like, when we were watching it, we were all like, whoa, that was clearly CG, but it was really cool.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what I'm saying, like, in terms of, like, I don't want to say it's not a quality movie, because, again, you're not wrong. This movie could easily be in theaters. And as recently as 5 or 6 years ago, these are the kind of things like the Takens, that are just like entertaining action movies that made a lot of fucking money. And like, and it's on Netflix, and it's like the biggest, actually it had the highest viewership, I think, of any Netflix original this year. I saw earlier today. They announced over the weekend. So yeah, I mean, basically he's a TSA agent who gets a call and says, do exactly what I tell you, or else we're going to hurt the people that you care about. And he's got to let this bag go through. And what's going to happen if he lets the bag go through? That's kind of what the whole movie's about. And, does he want to let that happen? And I don't know. I think the best thing I can say about it is it's a really fun action movie. And it's cool to have another Christmas movie that I'll probably watch regularly now.
Yeah.
Like, it's probably in the rotation for like an action Christmas movie.
I think what I was thinking about with the twist and turn, I've never heard a person openly threaten a person quite as much as Jason Bateman does this movie. It's like, hey, you play cute again, I'll kill her. I will blow her brains out in front of you. I'll kill everybody around you. He just keeps saying it over and over. It's like he is not fucking with this guy. And then he starts to demonstrate the power of his reach.
That's the key.
And then it just gets real weird. It's like, how did that happen? Yeah, it's
and you start to realize, there are like, it's not playing around. Like he's actually hurting people and killing people. And you're like, oh wow, like so there's really probably a reason that this kid should be concerned, that this guy could be concerned based on what he's seeing. But it's just a cool thriller, honestly. Like it's a fun action thriller. And definitely a recommend for me. Like everybody, we watched it with my friends on our coast to coast movie night, and everyone really liked it and was like, wow, that was really good, really fun. So Carry On is definitely a recommend for me, for sure.
So fun.
What's next? What we got? Oh wait, this is like a special thing we're gonna do, right?
Yeah,
I think so.
We think.
I
we
know
hope.
So.
If what you hear after what we're saying right now is just the ending music of the show, then we failed to do something that we intend to do. But if we actually pull off what we are hoping to do, there's really not much reason for us to set it up, because it'll just be like, bam, there it is, right?
Yeah, so basically in like the next 3 seconds, you'll know if it's great or not.
Right.
And we could really just count down, and you could just be a little surprised. You hear music, or do you hear something special?
If you hear music, we want you to fill in the fact that you've made our day, and then Ronald went,
clearly.
Bye! And then the music started.
We could just play like the Super Mario, like where you get hit, and we can do that.
Assuming I'm able to source that sound effect, and that we end up doing the thing we say we're going to do. We'll count down to three. We'll count down to 3. We'll count down from 3. We'll count down to 3 from 17. No, we'll count down from 3.
The math works out, John.
And then you'll hear a sound effect maybe, and then maybe something else. I like the mystery. We're like a mystery box right now.
But if you know us, though, we're going to make it happen. So just come with us. You guys ready?
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's go.
3, 2, 1.
Wonderful. That worked well. Could have been easier, guys.
It's going to sound fine.
It's going to be great.
So we did it. We did it, folks. The episode didn't end. There's more content.
Yes.
Ronald, explain what just happened.
So, through a series of time travel technologies, we have actually arrived at our destination, and we watched Nosferatu.
Ooh. The time travel device was just waiting to the next day, right? Okay, make sure
it was a low tech.
The math was right on
tech. If you think about it, Steve, Planet Earth is a kind of time travel device.
Right, we were just going with it. Okay.
Yeah, for sure. We made it work.
Yeah, we did. I'm still laughing about the way you said that. We went through time travel. We just let time happen.
Yes.
And we arrived at the Nosferatu screening.
I didn't say it was a heavy-duty time travel device. Very low tech.
Let's say it's traditional. It's very traditional.
Just waiting.
We got to see the early screening of Nosferatu, a nice little press screening.
Yeah.
Where we basically had a theater to ourselves almost.
Really cool.
We saw it with some friends of the pod.
Saw it with some great friends of the pod. Actually, people who listen to the show will know Lauren Wareheim. Yeah. And if you have been listening to the show really carefully, you've probably heard us drop the name Pierre Benoit, a longtime friend of mine and Ronald's, who was able to come to the screening, and that was great. And I just want to say, Lauren and Pierre, if you're listening, there's absolutely no reason why you're not on this podcast. Yeah, the movie was over. You guys both were like, oh, gotta go. And then we talked for an hour.
Yeah.
And then we came to record a 15 or 20-minute podcast.
Yeah. It's like, we handled that very well. Yes. Yeah, that was good call.
I think you and me and Ronald did not want to shift the gear from being like fun friends to see a movie with to suddenly people that are trying to twist your arm into like cramming into a car with us. Because we are, just like when we did Gladiator 2, we are sitting in my car outside the theater right after the screening. So maybe Lauren just had maybe neither one of them wanted to be in this energy.
Yeah, one of them would have had to been in the trunk, I guess, right? That would have been interesting. Yeah.
Tight fit.
Nosferatu, what are you guys feeling immediately out of the theater? This is live on location at the AMC White Marsh in the parking lot, in the car with all the windows steamed up. If you're listening to this in the future, time travel. We were that car. But yeah, what did you guys think of Nosferatu?
I think Robert Eggers is just really good at creating environment and dread, and I don't know. It's obviously really old school, the way the approach. I really enjoyed it. A lot of dreamlike sequences, and I think that was really the big difference between Witch in this. Like, so many dreamlike sequences that you may get kind of dizzied by them. But it is a really cool story that I unfortunately in the third act fell a little short from the dread that it was creating in the first two acts. But overall, I'd say it's one of those movies that I'll never forget. Like it's gonna be stuck in my head. The imagery between Lily Depp and Nosferatu, played by which Skarsgård? Bill Skarsgård? Bill Skarsgård?
Bill.
Bill.
Yeah, Bill.
Who is...
Or William, I don't know. What prefers to be killed. No, Bill. I was kidding.
Master of all trades.
You don't know if you know him well enough to call him Bill.
Yeah, I don't want to be presumptuous, but yeah, I don't know. Is his stock the highest right now amongst the Skarsgårds?
That's a good
question.
Like
right now. Alex, what's he got? What's Stellan got?
I mean, Stellan's just Stellan. So
he's Stellan. Yeah. But like right now,
yeah, I don't know.
Bill's kind of
might be on top.
Well, Stellan's got Andor season 2 coming up, so that's going to be good. I just feel like nothing Stellan can do at this point can really increase or hurt his profile. Yeah. Whereas I think Bill has got he's in these kind of talked about movies. He's in Barbarian. He's in It. Yeah. He's in
John Wick 4.
Yeah.
Nosferatu.
Right.
Yeah. No, he's got like a lot going for him, and he's definitely really comfortable with like a lot of the genre stuff too, which is like a rabid fan base, and even if a movie isn't massively successful, it's like he'll be fine on the convention circuit for his entire life.
Yeah. Forever. He's these iconic roles that he's done, from It to Nosferatu, and his voices are totally different from these characters. I can watch all these movies and not know they were the same person.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, Nosferatu, you really could not know.
What?
Knowing almost makes it like a game to try to find him in that makeup and in that performance. Yeah. I think keeping that part of the movie secret,
the marketing,
was a really smart thing, because it's not like the look of Nosferatu in this film is something so crazy that you couldn't imagine. It's just that if you saw it in marketing materials, which again, I think the logical thing for anybody to do with this movie would be to market it on the back of his image somehow. Vampire, But I think leaving him secret and leaving him a surprise makes it. It's not because you've never seen anything like this before, but it's just because the feeling of mystery and, as Ronald said, dread, that is the movie's best assets. That part of the movie was really effective, where like you hear about him, you're going to see him, you're in the castle with him, but it's dark, and so he's like disappearing around corners, and he's in the dark, and you're kind of seeing his face a little bit more and more through the light, but you never really see him. You don't really get a good look at him in the light, almost at all, but definitely it's a while. And so I feel like that part of the movie was really effective. And when you talk about like the dream imagery, Ronald, it's very interesting how much it was like dreamlike in a way that was really effective, but also in a way that, I agree, kind of hurt the overall momentum of the movie, because you are entering into that third act where things are getting kind of exciting and really stuff's happening. This is not a movie where nothing happens, but you are feeling like a lack of energy, maybe because of that dream vibe. It's beautiful and very well made, and I think this movie might be great, and I think I might love it in a lot of ways. But I do think if there's a way that it like left me wanting more, or it's more like, I don't know, maybe I'm projecting too much, but I'm just picturing the sort of people who go to see this movie who are going to maybe be put off by the fact that the creepiest, most atmospheric stuff is in like the middle third or towards the beginning, and that it doesn't really have a whole lot of new stuff to show you in the second act, or not the second act, but in the second half. Steve, what about you?
No, I thought it was great. I mean, I too felt like the performances were really good. It's like a low key. How many great actors are in the movie? Willem Dafoe, we talked about Bill Skarsgård and Lily Rose Depp, who, I mean, she hasn't done a ton of stuff, but she's great in this movie. But Aaron Taylor Johnson, I thought he's great in it. Emma Corrin, I didn't even know she was in the movie until I was watching it.
Ralph Ineson's in it.
Ralph Ineson's great. Did we talk about Nicholas Hoult? He's fantastic.
Nicholas Hoult, right? I mean, just like a low key, really stellar cast. But yeah, the craft is really incredible. The idea of place, and especially when he travels to Transylvania to meet the Count for the first time. Like, that whole thing was great, going through the gypsy village. Like, there's a lot of great set pieces in the movie, and that's something that I think Eggers has really kind of become known for, is like the practicality of his filmmaking. And of all the films he's made, you know, the size and scope of this, it's kind of like, a lot of people have been saying it's kind of like everything he's great at is in this movie. And I think that's probably true. I don't know that it's his best movie, but I mean, I thought the movie was really good. I mean, I too agreed with our friend of the pod, Pierre, had mentioned that there was like almost like a lack of crescendo to the film. Like, it did feel, like John mentioned, there was some stuff in the first half of the movie that was a little more intense or exciting or scary even than what you would expect in the final maybe 15, 20 minutes of the movie. You know, where this film goes a little more towards, like, I don't know, like, honestly, like a little more romantic of an ending, you know, and, you know, it still is impressive. And I think my favorite shot of the movie is maybe in the last 5 minutes of the movie. But it did seem to lack a little, I think crescendo is a good word. Like, it just didn't build all the way to the end, especially when you are doing something like John mentioned, where you're hiding a character intentionally. You're building off of, like, the word and the name and just the air of that character, or the term, you know, the Count, the vampire. Yeah. And then, you know, you kind of get to the film and it loses a little momentum, I guess, is what we're all kind of getting at. That said, I still thought it was really good. And like you mentioned just now, John, it's like, it might be great. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like, the more we talked about it outside, I was like, maybe I liked it more than I thought. Yeah. And the more it sits with me, maybe I will. But I mean, the thing that stands out to me, honestly, really great performances. It looks incredible. Score's really good. And yeah, Bill Skarsgård is like, he's just like a really great, like, I don't know if you want to say a character actor, but like just these characters that he just completely gets lost in. Mm-hmm. And the like Ronald said earlier, like the way he speaks in this film is just like, 100%, you would not know it's him if it wasn't promoted as, and it's barely even promoted that it's him, mm-hmm. you know?
Or you might even see his name in the cast list, but because he's not featured in the trailer, exactly. It's not registering that maybe he is the monster, or at least... Right. You know, that's not the imagery that they're marketing the movie on. They're marketing it much more on the face of Lily Rose Depp and her kind of eerie dream world character, like who we find has been having visions and dreams her whole life, and that's a part of the story. I guess since we talked about Pierre and his no crescendo complaint, he also kind of connected to that. He was saying that he was hoping that that Nosferatu would have more like powers. But I think that's kind of part of that desire of like ramping up in the end. You kind of want to see them take him on in a more monstrous form or something. But that's connected to the sort of vampire we're getting, which is our friend of the show, Lauren's complaint, which is that Nosferatu, on a vampire scale, he is not fuckable.
Yeah, he's like a one.
It's why he needs to hypnotize people and like attack them through their dreams and like curse them to have relations with him.
Into giving themselves to him. Yeah.
That's what I was saying to Lauren. That is like, I agree that he was not hot, but I also feel like it's a bigger accomplishment for an undead being to bag a babe, so to speak, if you look like Nosferatu.
It's true. I mean, the power's there.
I mean, it's undead goals, right, Ronald?
Yeah, just to have sex with an incredibly beautiful woman that is completely out of your league. That's the goal of the undead.
Yeah.
One thing that I was thinking about as we were watching the movie.
I love that we both just co-signed that.
Yeah, like, that checks out. It's undead goals. Yeah.
It feels like this like old school cinematography with new technology. Mm-hmm. There's like this play on shadows that's really very prevalent in like older monster movies that I just hadn't seen in anything else. Like, you know, I've seen it in montages of old school monster movies, Universal monster movies, and just stuff that existed in like the 30s and 40s. Just a shadow being cast that's extended to the victim, and it wrapping around the staircase and getting bigger and bigger.
Or just reaching up and grabbing the doorknob. Like
that was crazy.
Yeah, the shadow opens the door, and then the door opens, and then the guy's outside. Yeah. There's also the part where, I think this is what you were just referring to, Steve, going up the stairwell, or maybe this is what you were just saying, Ronald. They're going up the stairwell, and like they go around the corner, and the shadow of the Count is not in front of him anymore. And then he looks up, and he's like further into the room, and so he's doing some vampire movement shit. He's turning into a bat or something. You know what I mean? He's doing something that we're not really seeing. I think that was really effectively done. The otherworldliness of it, and as much as I sort of understand that, like some of the trappings of vampire-ness are not here because we don't have like he's not good looking. He's not like a guy.
He's not Lestat or Louis.
Or Dracula or any of that.
He's none of that.
But I love it's very much like if you took the witch template and put it on vampire, which is to say, what if you took this thing that when someone says witch, you have a picture in your mind of what a witch might do and where a witch might be and the kind of havoc a witch might cause, and then it's like what Robert Eggers does so beautifully is like put it in a place that feels real and grounded, but is so otherworldly to us because of its removed from modern life that it feels like a magical place. It's like, but there's not really a lot of magic in that world until the witch shows up in it. Or there's not a lot of magic in this world until Nosferatu shows up in it. So I think it's really interesting that he's got this ability to sort of, I've always actually been fascinated with that. The idea of like, oh, this beast is not a werewolf, but this is like what all stories of a werewolf might be based on. And I feel like you feel about Nosferatu like, oh, okay. In fact, the original Nosferatu was a thinly veiled kind of ripoff of Dracula. But the fact that it was made into a movie, an iconic movie first, some aspects of that version of the character have stuck in vampire lore. And so with vampire lore, you either have like, is it a rat-like creepy monster, or is it a good-looking, suave seducer? You know, but those are like tracks you can go down. And I like that not Dave Eggers. I like that Robert Eggers chose the path of, okay, let's make him a little bit more of a monster. Like to me, that was really interesting. Even though I can see how this movie could have gotten some more mileage, maybe in that last half, if Dracula was more of a daytime character, or you know what I mean, more of a character interacting with people.
That reminds me of Matt Reeves' Joker. It's like, what would a person look like if they fell into a vat of chemicals?
You're talking about the one who's in like one scene that was edited out
like
of the Batman?
Out on one side of his face. It's like this horrendous looking person. And I guess maybe that's what the Joker would look like. Or we imagine this stylized version of him that we've seen before. But Matt Reeves is like, nah, what about if he fell into a vat of chemicals? What would somebody's face look like?
And it deformed you so that you kind of looked like you were smiling. It's like, what would that actually be? What would that actually look like?
Scary stuff.
No, it's good though. But I do think like, if you're curious about this movie from a cinematic standpoint, I really think most people will be somewhat satisfied by this. If you're curious about this movie because the marketing makes it look like, oh, it's a horror movie blast, I don't know. It's more about atmosphere and less about.
You're not gonna get that. You're not gonna get like a.
That's not the selling angle.
As immersive as it is, though, like you say, set pieces. He creates these amazing set pieces, but they're very like paced and doled out. Like that scene where he arrives, like you said, in the Romany village. Very interesting, kind of weird scene. That scene, even where he goes like to the lawyer's place to like. When he's first finding out about what his assignment is. Even that scene of like the room full of all the guys working at desks has this weird old world atmosphere that you feel like, I don't know, is it because he uses a lot of natural lighting?
I think so. Yeah, I think it is. I mean, it's just that one of you said it earlier, it just feels like a real place. You know, and especially a real place at that time in that country. There's some sort of like tangible thing, whether we've seen it in a book, whether we've seen photo, you know, or like an illustration of what it looked like, or it should have or could have looked like. You know, when you see it in motion and it's like, and it's adapted that way or it's shot that way, it's not really dressed up with like, you know, fancy CG or anything like that. And
it's like a set that's dressed interestingly and costumes that are done well, but it's lit realistically, so you're just like, there's like details in the gloom that you can kind of see, but you're not seeing everything, but you can tell it's there. I don't know. I would love to see what the actual sets look like, but when you talk about his set pieces, I think it's interesting how immersive his movies are.
Really nice.
If you're looking for like a pretty straightforward like Blumhouse style horror film, you aren't going to get that in this. You'll get it in like an Abigail. Like that to me feels like, what's a vampire movie that's straightforward with, you know.
What's the other one that Nick Holt was in? Renfield.
Right.
With Nick Cage. Like that's even more in that lane.
Yeah.
But this is definitely a heftier, like I guess a meatier, like a thematic kind of horror film.
Cinema.
Again, there's like lust and there's like the drama and just the period of it all, like the idea of introducing a plague onto a village of this that the film takes place. Like that stuff is just really effective, especially when you can see it made on such a scale and made so well, and it's a really great experience to see a movie like this, especially if you can see it on the big screen. And honestly, it's kind of a ballsy move to like, this is a Christmas movie. Apparently, it's Christmas in the film, so it seems logical to me. So, I would definitely recommend it with the caveat that these guys are getting at, which is that like it is not a modern experience for a horror film. Don't expect that, even if you've got that at all from the marketing. Just trying to help the cinema score here.
Right. Honestly, I think if we're making it sound good, you should run out and see this because it's great. If we're making you go, it sounds like they're, like if you're one of those people who sometimes feels like these elevated horror films.
There it is.
If when I said elevated horror, if you started to make a stank face, then maybe wait for this one. If artsy versus fartsy, you know what I mean? It's like,
what side of it do you fall on?
Right, exactly. Do you think it's artsy or do you think it's fartsy?
Right.
Yeah.
No, this is definitely, check it out while it's in theaters. I mean,
Please do. It was solid. I really enjoyed it. The more I think about it, yeah, it was. I don't want to use the M word, but it is very well done, and like there's
you love that M word.
I do.
I think we need to have like a game where we count it.
Yeah.
We got to count, but you caught yourself.
Yeah, but
you're getting,
I guess it's like I think about it like this. I think about albums, right? If I listen to a 12-track album, if there are 4 songs that I listen to for the rest of my life, that's a good album. 4 songs for the rest of my life.
That's a good album. That's a G. That's a good word.
It's a good album.
What's the number for a M album?
10.
See, look at that. That's a pretty high batting average.
I think about like scenes from this movie that I will never forget. I think there's like 3 or 4 that are like in my head. Like
they're like tracks that you like on an album.
Just tracks.
No, I'm with that.
I'm not gonna forget this movie.
Like I don't have a lot of albums that I don't like most of, if not all, the tracks on them. But I think there is that thing where if you're honest about it, a few years later, the ones that really have stuck with you that you have any interest in listening to again, it's usually about half the record or less or whatever. Yeah. And it's even if you like all the others. So I think with a movie like this, like I would kind of agree with that idea, that metric of saying like there's enough to recommend in this movie that even if you're just curious about it,
and I got a hot take. I like this better than The Witch. I like this, like, it's, like, as I'm taking it in, I think this is one of those ones that I'm like, all right, well, Robert Eggers, this is your evolution of the whole ambiance that you created with The Witch. This is the one for me out of the 2.
What else, besides this and The Lighthouse?
The Lighthouse and The Northman.
The Northman. See, I never saw The Northman.
You've never...
No, but that's a blind spot. I need to check that out. That's the other Skarsgård, right?
Lighthouse is up there.
It is.
Lighthouse might be my favorite of them.
Really? Okay, wow.
Yeah, Lighthouse is up there.
I love Lighthouse. I was going to say I might like Lighthouse the best too because it's so weird and so unusual. But I haven't seen The Northman, so...
Yeah, so...
Northman is nuts.
That should have been my required viewing pick. Oops. Anyways,
maybe next time. Maybe next year.
Time, man. Yeah. There's always 2025. No, that's no. I have to see that one.
Yeah. Oh, we have an announcement, right?
Oh yeah. Do we know what we're announcing yet?
I don't think we have a date. However, we are going to be doing a live recording of Movie Schmovie that's going to be streaming on YouTube, and it's our top 10. It's our top 10 films of the year. We don't have a date yet, but stay on the socials.
Can we give them a range? Are we aiming for the like week after?
Yeah.
Christmas or something like that? Is that the goal?
Christmas. Yeah.
Like between Christmas and New Year's is what we're aiming.
Yeah.
If it trips into the first couple of days of the year, understand that is still way earlier than we normally get this done. Yeah. So it's still the same concept. But the point is, we're going to be doing a live stream, and we want everybody to know it with us, hopefully enough.
We're going to have space for at least 4 of you.
So, yeah, for sure.
And
But-
2 of them were with us tonight. So
Exactly right.
You've been called out.
Exactly right. But like, it would be cool if people, tuned in and left comments, and we could have a little
Talk to you
interactive
guys. Yeah,
experience.
that'd be cool.
Round up our movies of the year. This will be the first time we're trying to do it this early. I'm kind of excited. I still feel the pressure of trying to see a bunch of things, but I'm kind of relaxing a little bit because it's like I figure we'll just do the addendum episode later.
Right. We got to cover it somehow. Like the also rants.
Right. But otherwise, happy holidays to everybody out there. Thanks for listening. And we'll see you on the live stream.
Thank you for listening every episode if you're that person or persons. Like
appreciate you
people
so
that we were with tonight, Pierre, Lauren, you've been there a long time and we appreciate whatever level you're on, just any kind of support you've ever thrown our way. It's super appreciated. And something new like this live stream, if that sounds cool to you, make sure to follow the social media pages.
Yeah.
Movieschmovie.com for the podcasts themselves. You can link to the social medias from there. YouTube.com/Movie Podcast. Just to get, that's where you can get information. When we start getting the date finalized, like we usually record these on our own and they just kind of get released, but we want you to be a part of it. So we'll try to promote it to the best of our abilities, and that's where you'll help yourselves find that information. But it would be great if you could be a part of that first go.
Yeah.
It's a new thing for us, and we want anybody who wants to join in to be there. So.
Our Schmaden Schmoyage.
But yeah, good talking to you guys. I'm glad we got to do this again in John's car. It's like a session thing. We got to.
No, I know.
We gotta get a name for this.
What was funny was today I actually did clean out the car because I didn't know I didn't know if we were going to have guests or not. So I really did wipe it
First
down and stuff. Yeah.
impressions, right? Yeah.
But it was interesting. Like I was like, oh, I should have like bottled waters and like a thing of pretzels or
Like
something.
you're like an Uber driver or something. But yeah, thank you so much for listening. We'll talk to you in a week or so, and it'll be that awesome new live stream attempt. But as always, you've made our day. Thanks.
Bye.